Everyone, appreciate you joining us on this nice night. It's warm outside, it's sunny. You could be a lot of other places, so we appreciate you joining us for this talk tonight. My name is Eric Hayden. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Newport. We cover North Topsail Beach and Onslow County. We're going to give a brief hurricane presentation, talk a little bit about the outlook, what to expect this year, 3 tips for preparedness, and we're going to talk about all aspects of a tropical cyclone. Joined at the back by the town manager, also Miss Stacy Miles, one of the emergency managers for Onslow County. So we have a lot of experts in the back that are going to come up after the talk and answer any questions you have. We want this to be interactive. I'll be doing some talking, but if you have questions at any point, we want this to be kind of a back and forth discussion on hurricane preparedness. Before we get started, raise your hand if you've heard a presentation from the Weather Service or you were here last year. All right, so we have some repeat. Some of you had to be here, and then raise your hand if you've lived here more than 5 years, Eastern North Carolina, and then so some of us have, but a fair majority are new to the area, and that's what we want. We want a mix of folks for hurricane preparedness. For some of you, this might be the first season that you're preparing. So we try to break it down. Do one thing now to get prepared. It sounds simple, but if you take small baby steps, you'll make it happen. Focus on the impacts. Do not focus on just the category of the storm. You're probably familiar with category 1, 2, 3 storms. There's way too much emphasis on the category of the storm. We want you focusing on the impacts, not just a number. And water is what kills people. We'll reemphasize that over and over again. If you just remember those highlights, you are good to go in terms of hurricane preparedness. How many know that it's expected to be a busy season this year? Have you seen this outlook? All right. So we do want you to be calm about it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. At the 50,000 foot level, the water is very, very warm, and we're transitioning to a neutral or La Nina phase. Those are favorable ingredients. Weather is very unpredictable. There's ingredients there that are going to make it look to be an active season, but everything has to come together just right. So I don't want you to be too alarmed by the analysis of an above average year, but I do want you to prepare just like you would each and every year. We say it only takes one storm, but with an 85% chance it's going to be a busy year. We may already have something down in the Gulf here over the next week or so. It's just a reminder that hurricane season has already started. Even though the peak is not until September, we have had storms in June and July, so your clock is really ticking. It's much, much easier to prepare now than it would be before on an actual storm. One of the single best resources you can get weather is from our website. Obviously, I'm biased, but you have already paid for it with your tax money. Weather.gov, our joke with that is if it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. Just remember weather.gov. If you move from here, you take vacation somewhere else this summer, if you just go to weather.gov, you'll get a picture of the United States, and then you can click on the part of the country that you are interested in. You can scan the QR code and save it to your phone. Everything on here, from forecast, warnings, preparedness information, we send out briefings on storms. That is all on our local page. In addition, I'm going to talk about hurricane graphics. The forecast cone, the tropical weather outlook, all of that is on our page. We're just down the road in Newport. We cover Onslow County, so please use us. We're one of 122 offices in the country, and we serve Eastern North Carolina, so we're your local forecast office. You can save the National Hurricane Center. That is part of the Weather Service. We work together. They're kind of the big picture, and then we do the details on the local level. But if you want a one-stop shop, just go to our website. If you want to go to the Hurricane Center site, again, we work in tandem. It's hurricanes with an s.gov. Everything is on there that you need. Lots of information for storms when they happen. One of the single best things you can look at each and every day, and it's already showing something off the coast, last time I looked was yesterday, is the tropical weather outlook. This is now out to 7 days. It shows 4 times a day where there may be tropical formation in the next 7 days. This is something you check first thing in the morning. Do I have to worry about anything over the next week? Oh, there's nothing. Move on with your day. It updates 4 times a day, but you don't have to check it all the time. Just once a day, is there anything I need to pay attention to? It's a really good way to stay informed. Our local news will inform you as well. We work with the local media. You're going to know it's coming. It's going to be having to make a decision on what to do, and believing credible sources is your challenge. You're not going to be unaware that something's happening. Trust me, you will know. Another really good source, Hurricane Center or our website, is this forecast cone. Raise your hand if you're familiar with this. You've seen it before. You've seen it on the news, maybe showing where the storm is going. Probably the most popular graphic from the Hurricane Center, but it's also the most misunderstood. This cone shows where we think the most probable path of the center of the storm will go. So a couple things that are challenging about that. A hurricane's not a dot on a map. With Florence in 2018, it didn't hit in our area, it hit down in Wrightsville Beach. We still were impacted. So this is, if you're anywhere in the vicinity of this cone, you should be paying attention. It's not a, I'm in it, I'm worried, whew, I'm out of it, I shouldn't worry. The cone has been on a diet, unlike Mr. Eric. I love eating Eastern North Carolina barbecue and all our good restaurants. This continues to get skinnier each year because it's based on statistical error. It's not based on storm size. It's not real big for a big storm and real skinny for a little one. So as you get closer, you know, we're more confident a day out versus 5 days out. So it's going to get more narrow. So we may not be in the cone if a storm hits Wilmington, but you sure bet that we're going to be impacted. So just pay attention to it. If it's anywhere from Florida up through Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, you should be paying attention. It's not an in or out. Doesn't say anything about impacts. Just shows you where the center of the storm is going to go. Other products that are useful, again, hurricanes.gov. You can find stuff like, when is the wind going to get here? Worst case, most reasonable. What is the potential surge? I'm going to show you some potential values for North Topsail Beach to give you a simulation, but there's a tremendous amount of information on the National Hurricane Center site. Your challenge is to pay attention to official sources, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Why not now? We'll do it now. Social media is another way. NWS Morehead City. Your challenge is to pay attention to official sources of information. Local news, Onslow County government, National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center. There's plenty of information out there. You're going to hear about storms 2 weeks in advance on your favorite backyard meteorologist forecast page on Facebook. That does you no good if they're talking about every single storm that could happen, and then the next day it's gone. It needlessly gets you worried. You're wasting energy focusing on stuff that does not matter. I'm not saying focus on us because we get it right 100% of the time. I'm saying focus on us because we're credible. We don't wishy-wash, change back and forth, very consistent with how we message storms. So please focus and share official sources of information, especially on social media. You are helping the community when you share things like this. It's not a help to the community if you're sharing worst case 2 weeks out of what's going to happen. It's just needless energy on things that may never happen. So now we're going to shift gears. We talked about weather.gov, hurricanes.gov. Those are two good resources. Hurricane preparedness on our website. If you're familiar with our website, you just add the word hurricane prep. Everything you need. What should I have in my kit? North Carolina has a great campaign, Know Your Zone. There's evacuation zones that Stacy and Norman at the county have worked on. What areas are most vulnerable would evacuate first, all on this website. What should I do to my home? Graphics in Spanish, videos for the deaf and hard of hearing. Planning now is key. I don't even know what date it is, June 12th. We've done a lot of hurricane talks. It's mid-June, it's quiet, not a lot's going on. Storms are stressful. If you wait until the last minute, you're going to be stressed and you're not going to make the best decision. Think about your life when you've had stressful events. Sometimes you don't make the best decisions. The other thing is we are going to run out of water and things like that in the stores. I can guarantee it before storm happens. Much easier to get it now when we have those supplies. You can spread out the financial impact by getting a little bit this weekend, a little bit next month or next weekend. Planning is a good thing. You have a much steadier head on you than you would prior to a storm. So I gave you the website, but we want to break it down into 3 ways. Step 1 is you are here today. What is your risk? Do you live in a low-lying area? Have you been flooded before? Are you vulnerable to wind because you live by the beach? Do you have a lot of trees in your yard? What is your weather vulnerability? Who lives in your house? I've got young kids that are not so young anymore, 16, 13, and 10. A cat that's 20 and a half years old. Yes, Mr. Rocky is 20 and a half. My mom is almost 80 and she just moved to Swansboro 2 years ago. My evacuation plan has gotten very complicated as my family has grown. So my vulnerability is higher. I know I'm staying. I know I'm not going anywhere because I have to work. What am I going to do with them? Where are they going to go? So think about your risk. That includes everybody in your home. If you have young kids, you're thinking diapers and formula and what you would do with them. If you have elderly, somebody reliant on oxygen, electricity is a big deal for you. For me, it's inconvenient to lose air conditioning, but I'm not depending on it for my life. So what is your risk? That is something you think of today. Step 2 is for everybody. Everybody should have a hurricane kit. At least 3 days, first 72 hours, bare minimum, food, water, and medicine, anything you would need to survive for the next 3 days. If you can, stretch it out to a week. It's not that you won't be able to, it's because you might not be able to get to the store, or the store might not have the supplies. Once the storm's over, it's not just a snap of the fingers, depending on how bad it is, when life gets back to normal. Food, water, gas, things like that are low or out, or it may be the supply chain is damaged, so it takes a while to get back to normal. So if you can do up to a week, that will be even better. And again, supplies will run out, so if you get your case of water, I guarantee you go to the store this weekend, there's plenty of water. I can promise you, if that storm in the Gulf comes anywhere in the vicinity of us in the next week or so, things will run out. It just happens. So please get those items now. I don't have any stock in water. I don't have any stock in the grocery stores. I've lived here through hurricanes, and I can tell you what happens. The last step. So number 1, what's your vulnerability? 2, you got to have that kit. 3, have a plan to evacuate. Some people say, I'm never going to leave here no matter what. Please do me a favor and at least have a place to go in case at the last minute your mind changes because that storm got stronger than you thought would happen. If you can, have 2 places to evacuate to. Don't just go to Raleigh. Raleigh's a great city. It's 3 hours inland. Sometimes it's great. You can go to Raleigh and you'll be just fine. Sometimes, like we have with Fran, the impacts are just as bad inland as they are at the coast. So be flexible. Again, plan A for me, grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Family lived there forever. That was plan A, ship everybody up there. Plan B for me was down in South Carolina where I have family. My plan A is gone. My family is here now, so I have to have a new plan A. What about hotels that take pets? How would you get people there? Transportation issues, thinking of that. You will hear about shelters, especially inland counties. That is the last place you want to be. Nothing against shelters, but that is a last resort. You're there during stressful times with a lot of people. It would be much more accommodating if you visit that family friend in Ohio or Pennsylvania. All those families that are visiting us this summer, they can pay you back by visiting them. So I'm telling you, it's much more comfortable with a family or friend or at a hotel than it is staying at a shelter or staying local without power and electricity. So please keep that in mind. So we went over a lot on preparedness. For those new folks in the room, not to scare you away, but we are the most impacted stretch of coastline in the entire United States. We are very active with storms. Once on average, I think it's about every 5 years, we see something. So now's the time to prepare. If you didn't realize that we get a lot of storms here, we get a lot of storms here. And maybe not specifically North Topsail Beach some years it's up toward Cape Hatteras, some years it's Wilmington, but eastern North Carolina, we're extremely prone to storms. For some of those that nodded their heads and they said, yep, I've been here much longer than 5 years, Eric, you'll hear these names over and over again about storms. And in New Bern and in Carteret County and Morehead City, it might be Irene and Florence. But for us in Onslow County and North Topsail Beach, yeah, it's Florence, but it's also Bonnie and Fran and Bertha, Hazel. So other storms impact us differently. No storms are alike. Each one is different depending on where they hit. The storm of 1752, there is a town in Onslow County, was the first incorporated city in the town, gone because of that storm, and eventually moved north and became Jacksonville. It was where Camp Lejeune is now. So we have had some crazy storms that have moved towns because they've been so bad in our area. So just a little reminder of that. This is us. Well, we have a lot of pictures in here. This is something I took after Florence. This is North Topsail Beach. Just look at some of the captions. Most will be from Florence, but we've got some from Fran here as well. So the time to prepare is now. This is a graph showing that the peak for hurricanes and tropical storms is September 10th. So a couple things I want you to get out of this. Number one, we've had storms as early as May, so we're already into the season. We had Hurricane Arthur in 2014, not a big deal here, but it hit July 4th weekend. Can you imagine with the people and summer traffic and all that? But some of our worst storms, traditionally about the middle of August to about the end of September. That's kind of our big time for when we get storms. We've had storms into the month of October, like we did with Hurricane Matthew. So long season, when we get past Labor Day, kids go back to school, you're back to work maybe more than you are this summer. Do not let your guard down. We're just getting to about the peak of the season. So time is to prepare is now, and it's going to be a long one. We as scientists have become a lot more accurate. We hear all the jokes. It must be nice to have a job where I know you've said it. You can get it wrong all the time and still be paid. Might be nice to have a job where you can get it right only half the time. We hear all the meteorology jokes, but if you look at the statistics, we've become extremely accurate with the forecast. Doesn't mean we're not going to miss some, but this is our challenge: is people believing it and taking action on it, actually understanding that yes, it could be this bad. Or yes, it could actually happen to us like this. A lot of focus on this. I won't call anybody out in the audience, but a lot of times I'll say, raise your hand if you said, or somebody else has said, I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 2. I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 3. I'm staying unless we get a 4. Too much focus on category. Florence and Matthew were just once. So just as a reminder, just in the last less than 10 years, we've had a lot of reminders, and that's the north end of Topsail Beach during Florence from just a 1. Almost 200 deaths and $200 billion in damage from just ones. Water is what kills. 85% of people that die in hurricanes die because of water. Let that sink in. 85% of deaths are because of water. The category of a storm only tells you about the wind speed. It doesn't say you're going to have 20 or 30 inches of rain. Doesn't say what the rip current threat is. Doesn't say how high the storm surge is going to get. North Topsail Beach and Fran was one of our big ones. We had 12 feet of surge on the island. Everybody likes to tease me. I love basketball, and I always use the analogy: a basketball hoop is 10 feet. It's pretty tall. It's higher than a basketball hoop of surge where we're standing in our community. And then the lower right, those walkways are going somewhere. Those are over dunes that are no longer there, and that was from Florence. So water, and it can be anything from storm surge, which is a big deal where we stand, rip currents ahead of a storm, or flooding as well. To highlight that, we had 15 people in the state die in Florence. 11 of the 15 were flooding, so it's not just an old statistic. This continues. All 11 were in vehicles. So never, ever, ever, ever cross a flooded road. Most deaths flooded related are preventable. It's not the water comes up and you didn't know. It's going somewhere that you shouldn't be, or you didn't realize how deep it was. Got a lot of experience here since we have so many storms. It could be a good or bad thing. Looking at the statistics, Irene, not a huge deal in Onslow County compared to like a New Bern or Morehead City. Florence, a much bigger deal. It depends where that storm hits. We could be correct about the cone, but if it's on the right side of the cone or the left side of the cone, and a lot of that doesn't come down until the last day of the storm track. If you get hit on the right side of the storm, it's a bad thing, and that's what happened with Florence and Fran. So past experience can help, but a lot of people during Florence said, oh, I've been through them all. It's not going to be that bad, but it's kind of rare for us to be on that right side of the storm. We had it in the mid-90s with Fran. It had been a while since we had really gotten a good one like we did with Florence.
Why the right side?
So,
clockwise?
got it. Counterclockwise. So area of low pressure, that's a hurricane. It moves counterclockwise. So on the right side of the storm, you have the movement of the storm and all of that going together, working in tandem, where the opposite side of the storm is working against storm motion. In addition, on the right side of the storm, our air is coming over the ocean, not as much friction, there's no trees, buildings, vegetation to slow down the wind, where the left side of the storm, it would be coming offshore, and it slows down a lot more the wind. So right side's bad, 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 bad. Post-storm, we want you to pay attention to this. We're pretty good at preparedness. A lot of people are getting kits. Evacuation still, it can be home to home, it depends. But post-storm, you get that generator, know how to use it. If you don't do a lot of physical activity, don't be on a ladder, cleaning up the yard right away. Get some help, hire some help, or wait. Don't let your guard down. Flocking back to the area, doing things you shouldn't do. The water is extremely dirty. Septic systems, water, all that doesn't mix. We've lost people, maybe not in this local community, but in eastern North Carolina, to infections, having wounds, and being in the water. So don't want to be in the water. Know how to use a generator. It takes time, weeks, months. and some of us have still not recovered from Florence. It takes time. Don't rush recovery when you did a really good job for preparedness. So we're going to end with this. If I talk about not focusing on the category, what should I focus on? And again, when I say don't just focus on the category, I don't mean just throw it out. Oh, Mr. Eric said, don't worry, it's a 4. Just look at how much rain we're going to have. It's just part of the puzzle. It's not the end-all, be-all. Kind of look at the whole encompassing picture. So things like how much rain, what storm surge. If you're inland in Richlands, maybe you don't have to worry about storm surge. But if you're right where we are today, you have to worry about storm surge. Rip currents, wind, and also tornadoes. Storm surge, that's a rise of water ahead of the storm, so all that wind is pushing the waves toward the coast, and we have a huge rise of water ahead of it. Waves on top of it can add increased wave action. And again, those are the tennis courts and the whole area that has been redone in that picture. Or you said that's after Florence, right? So that's that general area where these pictures are coming from. Don't assess your storm surge vulnerability based on previous storms. Again, each storm is unique, depending on exactly where it hits, and from where it hits to the right, immediate right of the storm is the worst part. Does not have to make landfall in our area. Fran and Florence did not make landfall in our area, but did we have 12 feet of surge here? Yes. So doesn't necessarily have to be a direct hit to cause an issue. So for special communities like yourselves, down East Carteret County, Ocracoke, Outer Banks, I've started to show reasonable worst case scenarios. This is something we usually don't do. This is taking into account changes in speed, direction. This is a reasonable, it's reasonable to think a Category 3 storm could hit here. This is not Armageddon. This is not end of the world. This happened in 1996, just down the road from us. So this is realistic. Anything you see in red is greater than 9 feet above ground. That happened. We had 12 feet. So again, this is not unrealistic. A lot of this is the tidal area. So again, driving over the bridge, I saw it all. So a lot of this is not where you are. But if you squint and if you zoom in anymore, it disappears. We don't show like houses and stuff. So this is as zoomed in as I can get. But this is 210 coming here. And when you look at like the main road itself, you see some yellows and you see some oranges. That's 3 to 6 feet above ground. Pretty easily, in some cases 9. So that's a reasonable worst case for our area. I think it was 2 to 4 with Florence. I was looking through some of the photos that that was a bad storm, but that was not Fran or even Bertha in some of these areas. So it can be a lot worse. A lot of people talk about Florence and it was bad, again, for longevity and rain, but that's not like a once in a lifetime storm. It could happen next year. It could happen 2 years in a row. It could happen twice in a season. The big deal with Fran was the storm, I think, before Bertha. So you had multiple storms in the same year. So this is not to scare you. This is a reality.
It may from the ocean side or sound side?
It can be both, mainly here ocean, but you can have the back sound side issues as well. Yeah.
Not 90 feet. I would imagine.
Oh no, I mean we had 12 feet in Fran.
From the sound side?
Probably not from the sound side, but it just depends. We can get, I'm not as familiar with the sound side issues as like a Bogue Banks up my way, but we've had some worse sound side flooding than ocean side, just depending on how the sound goes. Again, not knowing the waterway here, just to put it in perspective, who likes to visit New Bern? Great town, right? 45 minutes inland. The Pamlico Sound I'm much more familiar with, much wider body of water, extremely shallow. That gets funneled up the Neuse River, and they had 10.5 feet of surge from the Neuse River and the Pamlico Sound. So it can happen, but here we don't have as big of a body of water. So yeah, just to give you a heads up on that. Flash flooding. We will issue flash flood warnings during heavy rain events. Category is not an indication of how much rain we're going to get. Florence was a 1, 20 to 30 inches of rain. We could have Tropical Storm Stacy and no number, no nothing, and it could be 30 inches of rain. You don't have to be a meteorologist to know that's going to be a problem. And I specifically picked this one because this was on our drive to North Topsail Beach, and there's the culverts, the conduit piping going under roads. When the water exceeds that capacity, there's road washout. So this is in Hubert on our way to take pictures here of the surge back in 2018. Cars can float in less than 2 feet of water. Water's extremely powerful, can easily sweep a car away. So most deaths occur in vehicles in water. So again, it's not something that happens and you didn't know that you're at risk. You just think, well, that water's not really that powerful. But what you may not realize is the road doesn't exist underneath. And this is not a gotcha. Mr. Eric looked on Google for the craziest flood photo he could find. This is up near Snow Hill, northwest of Greenville. We had this across Onslow County, but especially into Duplin, where we have a little bit of topography. I don't mean Boone or Asheville. I mean, like, you know, that first little hill you hit after living on flat land for so long. Road washouts. So, you know, you don't know how deep it is. Water's extremely powerful. Never ever cross a flooded road. So if you choose to stay where you are. Don't be out during the storm, after the storm, being in a rush to see what's going on. Stay where you are, because water's extremely dangerous. I'm showing you this one. This is inland. We do have you know, smaller rivers and creeks. We don't have the huge river flooding that they do in inland counties, but as you try to come back to Onslow County or try to cross Onslow County, many roads will be closed for a while. So these are just some pictures from Matthew inland, and then just to highlight that, you know, we have a lot of water in our area. It's not going to be easy to get back. It's not to discourage you from leaving, but just the reality is you're not going to snap your fingers and things are back to normal right away. Rip currents can occur from a distant storm. 2019, a lot of focus was on Dorian. We lost more lives from Lorenzo, 2,000 miles away. We lost people, 4 on our beaches and 8 across the East Coast. So again, you have a big storm. It doesn't have to hit us to generate swell at the coast. So well before a storm, that's our first threat. Think about it. If you're putting the big bucks to be here at the beach for a week and the storm is not until Friday, you're going to be out there checking on Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. You're not going to leave until you have to leave. Just know that even though it's sunny, those large waves are approaching the coast well before the actual center of the storm. Strong wind, we put it toward the end because, again, statistically, it's about an 8% chance of a death in a storm from wind, 85% from water. But, you know, wind can cause damage for sure. Categories based solely on the wind speed itself. This is an example of Arthur. This is in 2014. It made landfall to our east by Cape Lookout. We don't really remember it. I'm sure the county might remember it because it's July 4th weekend. It's kind of crazy if you're talking evacuations and a Category 2 storm heading our way. Very small, very compact, fast moving. Just a 30-mile shift to the west would have been a much bigger deal here in Onslow County. And that would be in our cone. We've got our cone and just a little wobble left or right. Just even thinking, I think it was Ophelia hit by Emerald Isle and it was strengthening as it approached our coast last year. Just a little shift to the left and a little increase in wind speed and it'd be a whole different ball game. And while we're extremely accurate, those little shifts and wobbles are going to happen down the road and they're very, very hard to predict. Last but not least, tornadoes. That is Bogue Inlet Pier just up the road from us. The first outer bands of rain that hit Onslow County did produce tornadoes in our county. So if you choose to stay, it's just a tropical storm, it's going off coast, that's okay, no problem. Just make sure you have this charged up and make sure your phone is not on Do Not Disturb if it's at night. Have a NOAA weather radio, be paying attention to the local news. It's unlikely you're out shopping, but it can produce enhanced areas of damage. So you gotta get that warning and know to seek shelter at the lowest level of your home. So we're going to wrap up with this. Whenever I give this talk, especially for new people, you're just like, wow, look at all the storm surge and rip currents. And that's the reality. But the reality is also that picture. And I just walked on the beach before I came here today. We live in an awesome area. Every year I come here and drive down 210, we continue to grow. More people are coming, realizing our secret of where we live. We live in an awesome area, but it is our responsibility to prepare. Each and every year we need to be prepared for hurricane season. If it doesn't happen, then we'll do it all over again next year. A few days out of the year could be crazy, but the rest of the year it looks like out our window now. So share this information. You don't have control over whether we get a storm or not, but you do have control over, you know, I'm going to get that case of water tomorrow. Let's get this out of the way. I'm going to get the canned goods. You know, I've never ever had a plan to evacuate. But I'm gonna talk to some family friends and come up with a plan to evacuate this year. You have control on all of that. And again, don't make those plans just on the category. So that is it. So at this time I'll call up, I guess we'll do an order however you all want to do it. We've got some members from North Topsail Beach and the county. They're going to go over more things like passes, utilities. We have folks from the utilities as well and answer any questions you have. While they come up, we'll knock on wood. This is being recorded. So if you want to revisit this, share it with somebody. It'll be on YouTube. We'll get it through the town or the YouTube channel for the Weather Service. So this will be information you can share with the community. So it looks like Stacy drew the short straw. She'll be up first from the county. She's got a lot of good information. And again, if you've got any questions, this is the time to ask it. If you could just probably stamp up right there.
It's really a lot of what I just try to talk about is sort of the county-centric stuff. Miss Alice will talk about the North Topsail-centric information for you all. The county is who manages the hurricane shelters when we open those, and we announce those on all the social media, the local news. We push it out to all of the towns. Your all's closest shelter for just general population will be Coastal Elementary right across the bridge and down off Folkestone Road. We've got 2 shelters now, Coastal and Clearview. They have a whole section that is rated at 152 mile-an-hour winds, and it's got fully generated in that whole section. So those are 2 of our primary shelters. If you have pets, we ask you to come up to Jacksonville Commons. That's right up down from my office in the center of Jacksonville, basically, and that is our pet-friendly shelter. Service animals are welcome in any shelter, but other pets have to go to Jacksonville Commons. Like Mr. Eric said, we always recommend you to evacuate. While we love our staff and we think they do a wonderful job, we are not the Hilton. You get a cot and 3 meals. It is bare bones. We are there to give you a safe space. We are there to provide services, and we are there to help you get back home after the storm is over with. But it is by no means a luxury situation. People are crammed in the hallways of the schools. But it is a safe space, and you are welcome, like I say, at any time. We will stand up a phone number for the Citizens Phone Bank. And again, when that number is operating, we publish that out. What the Citizens Phone Bank is just a call-in center. We have staff from across the county that will come in. They are there to answer any questions you have about the storm, about what shelter you should go to, about what impacts we may expect. We get a lot of our information from the National Hurricane Center and Mr. Eric up in Newport Moorhead. We will share town-centric information. If you call us, we have gotten information from them as well as all of the others. We keep all of the curfews and the states of emergencies on hand. So if for some reason you can't get anybody else, our number's always available for you to call as well. Eric said 2 inland places. We always recommend when we give talks 3 different inland places. One of the things I try to work with people when they're planning those evacuation routes is not just know where you're going to go. Don't just decide I'm going to go to Greensboro. Pick you 2 or 3 hotels in Greensboro, write down their name, write down their address, write down their phone number. If you've got pets, make sure they're pet friendly, know anything special you need to know. Because if you're driving up the road with everybody else from Onslow, Pender, and New Hanover County fighting the traffic, you don't want to be on your phone trying to search Google to find you a hotel where you're going. So pick those 2 or 3 cities, pick 2 or 3 hotels, have all of that in your emergency kit with you. The other big one we hit on with that emergency kit, if you have medical needs, to work with your primary care physicians or your specialist physicians. I just met with the local dialysis centers. They have a whole emergency plan that they work with the dialysis patients, you know, and we want you to do that for anything. I wear contacts. I have extra contacts. I have extra glasses because nobody wants me to be without my contacts or glasses after a storm. I am blind as a bat. So we want people, if you have walkers, if you have glasses, if you have medications, work with your doctors to make sure that you have a plan for extras or a plan for refills. Because as Mr. Eric said, sometimes the pharmacies aren't going to be able to get right back open. So having you just that little 5 or 7 day breakthrough is going to get you through. So that's the big things I hit on as far as the county go. Like I say, Miss Alice will give you sort of the specifics for the town. But if you have any questions for me at all, I'll be here until after the meeting's over with, and you can always contact our office as well.
So, one quick question. You said your phone bank?
Yes.
That's available before or after?
We will stand it up usually before the storm, so when we know that we're gonna start getting impacts in Onslow County, we will stand up the phone bank.
A tropical storm, don't worry about
Anything.
that, right here, right? But
Yeah, anything. So a good one, and he mentioned it, it doesn't always have to be a hurricane. Tropical Storm Nicole in 2011 was some of the worst flooding Onslow County had seen since Fran in '96. We stood up the phone bank, I think, a good 24 to 48 hours before Nicole was even supposed to impact us. So because we knew we were going to be potentially activating shelters, and anytime we start thinking about shelters, recommending evacuations or anything like that, we're going to stand that phone bank up. I can go ahead and give you the number, just know it's probably not live right now, but it is 989-5027. And if you lose it, like I say, when we are activating the phone bank, we will push that number out every avenue we have to push it out.
Could you do that again? Is it
989?
989?
5027, yeah, 910.
Say it one.
989-5027.
What's your office name? The name of your office?
Onslow County Emergency Services, yeah. And our direct line, I'll go ahead and give you that too. It's 347-4270. And that's where if you have questions about evacuation routes, the Know Your Zone, or you have questions, like I say, just putting your kit together, my staff and I are all willing to sit down and work with everybody to help them plan out for the hurricane. All right, we'll hand it over to Miss Alice.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and taking time out of your busy schedules. We certainly appreciate you attending this informative event. As you've heard from Mr. Eric and Ms. Stacy, that we obviously live in a vulnerable area, so it's very important that we stay alert and stay prepared. Just like they were talking to you about making sure that you all have a plan for your family, your pets. It's also imperative that the town has a plan, and we do have a plan, and it's something that we look at every year. Staff has meetings where we look at, we revisit the plan, tweak it, see if there's any after action items that need followed up on from previous events, whether they were large scale or small scale. We've implemented our emergency operations center here at Town Hall over the last couple of years for small events, just for practice. So those are things that staff does to prepare. We also have contracts in place with debris management contractors, Crowder Golf and Tetra Tech. Crowder Golf is our contractor that's been in place since 2022. They continue to work for us and have contracts through 2027. These contracts are essential because they are imperative should we have a large-scale event. They would be activated. Crowder Golf would be in charge of pushing to get to the island to start clearing debris, and then Tetra Tech is our monitoring service, who basically follows Crowder Golf around, makes sure and qualifies what they are doing, and verifies all their submittals and hauling all of the debris away. Sorry, Eric. It's just a mouse.
Oh,
I'll get it. But that's essential. The monitoring is essential, especially after the storm, because we have to submit everything for reimbursement to FEMA. And all of the checks and balances are imperative, and if we don't have those, the town does not get reimbursed for those events. So those services are essential, and those are things that we have in place. We also do training each year with staff and Crowder Golf and Tetra Tech, what we call we pick sunny days before hurricane season starts, where we review everything, go over if there's any new information that should be received or reviewed, especially as it relates to FEMA, things that change each year. We've done that in May. We've had that meeting. It usually lasts a half of a day. Also, I mentioned that we try to go over lessons learned, and one of the lessons learned that I've heard about since I came on board a couple years ago from Florence was communication issues here. In the last couple years, staff has taken a lot of initiatives. If you were here last year, you probably heard about the backup devices we have for a mobile unit that goes wherever we go to help us to be able to communicate. This year, we've implemented another measure on top of that, which we expect to roll out in early July. We've already activated the contract for it, but it's with Starlink Satellite Internet Solutions. So this is going to be another measure, should communication fail, that allows us to ensure that we continue to be able to communicate effectively and timely for phones, internet. The backup system that we had prior for 4G and 5G, while it was a good solution, once we get into an EOC situation and we have multiple staff members that are present, bandwidth could become an issue. So we look at this every year to say, okay, how can we improve? What can we keep building upon? So these are some of the things that we've done for this year in particular. We also have re-entry passes, I would just like to mention, for residents. And we have someone from staff here tonight, so if you don't have your re-entry passes, I would encourage you to get those before you leave tonight. If not, you can come to Town Hall or get them online. We have the availability online now as well to obtain those passes. But it's...
Are the passes, the entry passes
The-
different for each year, or is it, if you have one, then it's good for as long as you're here?
If you have a pass that was currently issued in 2020, they're valid through the end of 2024. So in January, that's when everyone will receive communication from the town that says, sign up now for your new reentry pass. But if you have one now, it's valid through 2024. And we wanted to time that so that we're not doing a renewal process right before hurricane season or in the midst of hurricane season, of course. So, we're
Next
letting...
year we gotta get a new one, basically.
Come January, yes. But if you have one current, you don't need to for this season. We've also, with these meetings, we've invited, as Stacy mentioned, utility providers, because there's always a lot of questions that come up, about when utilities get cut off. So we have representatives, and I thank you for attending tonight, from Joe MC and Onwasa. They're great partners with the town, and we appreciate all that they do with us. And the county as well, working with Stacy. She's always, she's an asset to the town, and communication, they're good at communicating to us, and that helps us get information to you all, so we're very appreciative. There was a lot of tips shared throughout that Mr. Eric presented. One thing that somebody brought up last year that attended in the audience as a tip was to have cash on hand. And I thought that was a good takeaway as well from the meetings that somebody had brought up, because, as you're in the middle of your evacuation process, not all the machines may be working, communications go down. Cash always works. So it's good to have cash on hand. So that was a good tip. I will be available here after the meeting. If you have any other questions, if you think of anything as we continue through, please feel free to speak to me or contact me anytime at Town Hall. I'm here to answer any questions you have. And
I have one question. So during Florence, I know you had a mandatory evacuation, right?
mhm.
How long was it before residents could come back to the island?
And I'm going to defer that question to our Mayor Pro Tem, who was here during Florence, because I don't want to get that wrong.
It was over 5 days, I'm thinking 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
It was every bit of 7
It was
days
7
to get
days.
people in the county, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the big issue, people want to see what their property looks like.
Yeah.
And they call the town emergency operations center trying to get information, when are you going to reopen the road? If they don't reopen the road until it's safe, come back on the
and other technology that the town has acquired over the last couple years. You know, we have drones that are available. We have one and we have another one that will be coming soon. We have operators that are able to operate those to assess and help with assessing conditions. We also have a building department staff who's trained in damage assessments that go out right after the event. And, you know, we're working with the county and the state and providing that information as well. Another question that's always asked too, and speaking about evacuation, is closing the bridge. We always get that question. Are you going to close the bridge? If the winds are sustained at 45 miles per hour, the DOT will recommend closing the bridge. So just be aware of that.
Is there like, how do you know if it's closed, for instance, without driving up here? Is there some sort of notification?
Well, that's the important part of communication. So we'll obviously, once the DOT, we have communication with the DOT, and we're in communication with the county and everyone else, all the other towns, because we all communicate as well, because it's important to work together. We're going to send out a public notice that says the bridge is closed.
And where do you send that?
It would go out, it would be posted on our website through social media. We also have a Code Red.
North Topsail Beach website?
Yes, the Town of North Topsail Beach website. We also have a Code Red system for emergency notifications. I would also encourage you, if you have not signed up for those notifications, that you do so, because any emergency communication is going to be pushed out to you via text or email, whatever you choose, and phone.
But that's not the bridge closure though, that's not Code Red, though, right?
It would be any communication that the town issues on
So
any
it
matter.
could be-
Yes, it very well could be. Yeah. So please sign up for Code Red through our website if you have not done that already. And if you need assistance with that, please contact us and we'll be happy to assist you with that. Any other questions for me right now? Okay. I will, let's see, who wants to go first? Ricky? Okay. Ricky is with Joe MC. Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you. I'm Ricky Moretti with Jones Onslow EMC, electric provider here at North Topsail Beach. Matter of fact, the whole beach in inland. I'm located right here on Highway 210, right up the road here. I've been here for 35 years, so I've seen Bertha and Fran. That was remarkable. Some of the pictures y'all saw in here, those don't do it justice. Actually, there was 4 feet of sand on the bridge, not on the bridge, but on the roadway here on the island. It was terrible. We had 0 meters turning during Bertha and Fran. We have 80,000 meters now. It was about 67 then, so we've grown a lot. They were talking about curfew. Utilities, and you can ask these gentlemen right back here, we like it when there's a curfew and nobody's on the beach but us. I mean, that's just how it is. I know it's your property. You want to get back to it. We want to get the power back to it. So when you do get there, you'll be able to have some power. But for our guys to be working on the beach, it's nice not to have that traffic. That was just one big kicker for us. I'm sure the Onwassa guys are going to say the same thing pretty much. But I'm going to be here. I'm going to stay after. I got some business cards I'd like to pass out. Any questions from me from the audience right now? And like I said, I'll be here afterwards also.
You recommend generators?
I recommend generators. Yes, sir.
And they have to be outdoors, and I'm on the beach side, so it has to be 10 foot up and.
Exactly right. That'll be with the town inspections. They will get you right with that. But I'm not going to tell you not to get a generator. I mean, that could happen at any point in time, obviously.
Nowhere near your air conditioning.
Yeah, they've got some strict regulations on it. Well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Young. I'm with the Onslow Water and Sewer Authority, and I'm here to pass along some hurricane preparedness items from Onwasa's point of view. So in case of a pending storm, we obviously will revert to our current standard operating procedures and emergency response plans. We make sure that those are in place ahead of time. We have over 140 or so generators that will be prepared and ready to go should we lose power and need to continue water service or run pump stations. One of the photos up there that caught my attention was the one of the washout in Hubert. If you saw to the right of that photo, there was a white pipe that was in that washout, and that was a water service line to that area that had been washed apart from the surging water through that creek. So water infrastructure, although it's in the ground, it is at risk in places, especially on the beaches, because of the soils that is buried in are not as tough as what is inland. It's sandy and can be moved easily by water. So exposure can cause damage to our infrastructure and would need repair as soon as we could get back over on the island. We'll fill water reserves to maximize capacity. All of our well sites and production plants will be running at peak performance. The water and wastewater plants will have extra chemicals and supplies on hand in advance of the storm. So we always increase our treatment capacity abilities before storms and any supplies that we need ahead of time so we can provide the maximum service to the citizens of Onslow County. Approaching hurricanes, Onwasa crews, equipment, and supplies will be staged at treatment facilities throughout the county so that we can quickly access damaged areas and begin emergency repairs as soon as it is safe to do so. So we utilize all of our wastewater plants and our water treatment facilities, and the crews on the water and sewer side that are typically the ones out in the field from our distribution and collection crews. They will be housed at those facilities and ready for the word go. And when they're told to go, they go. And do a great job. They were fantastic during Florence. I'm a plant manager out in Richlands. Mr. Eric hinted on that. Richlands may not have to worry about surge, but it certainly has to worry about flooding. And if you don't know anything about the New River, it's unique to Onslow County. And those smaller creeks could not empty out into the New River, which caused our facility in Richlands, the Northwest plant, to flood. And as a result of that, I had to have 2 crew members swift boat rescued out of that plant during Florence. And so, although we're still trying to provide our service to our community, it doesn't mean that we're without being impacted ourselves and having to deal with our own in-house emergency. But everybody's good and everybody was safe, and all the rescuers did a wonderful job. Onwasa has contractors just like the town of North Topsail Beach on standby to mobilize if we need them. Within 24 hours of a storm, Onwasa will give a facility status update to let our customers and our member governments know where we are. The extent of damage or what repairs need to be, what our high focus areas are. And also we will, at those facilities that we house staff, they will also have a internal damage assessment team that will go out and do the assessment following the storm. Prior to the storm, those teams will receive training on how to properly inspect for damage, and they will have to go through a successful drill to make sure that they'll be ready should the need arise. And then of course Onwasa is also a member of the North Carolina Water Warrant System, and if you were here during Hurricane Florence when our employees were uncovering water meters and doing repairs, you would have also seen Greenville utility vehicles with our folks. And that's because Greenville Utilities was the water-worn group that was dispatched to help on Wassa. Not only did they help on the water side, but they also helped me at the Northwest Regional Plant in Richlands to get that plant back online, so we could render proper services. So that's a few things about Onwassa, and I have a wonderful crew here with me tonight, and any of us would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, unless you have something now that you want to ask. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any recommendations for homeowners during the storm, or like cut off the water before they evacuate, you put the main water off or something like that?
I wouldn't necessarily say you need to cut your water off, but I would encourage you to fill your bathtub up, reservoirs in your house, so you have some stocked water. And that's another reason we run our system, because we know some people do prepare that way, and it puts a demand ahead of the storm on our system. But I would definitely encourage you to have some water on, whether you run it through your tap or whether you go to a store and buy it. You definitely need some water for after.
If you lose power, do you lose water source?
Yes. I'll just say it that way. So, I believe it was you, Ms. Town Manager, you said at 45 miles an hour, the DOT shuts down the bridge. Jones Onslow shuts the power at 45 miles per hour, and Onwassa shuts the water at 45 miles per hour. We can't access it. So if we have a blowout, we can't get to it safe, and we don't want. He said water kills, but he wasn't referring to Onwassa. He was referring to the storms. But as a general rule, 45 miles an hour is those thresholds. Is that right, sir?
Yeah, it's not that we turn the power off, it's going out and working
That's right.
when the power goes off. Power will not go off unless it goes out by itself.
That's right.
Safety features on the line that take care of that. We do not shut it off.
Yep.
You'll hear people say, you shut the power off. No, we don't. It's the safety features that's built in to the substations that, or the circuits, that will turn itself off whenever something gets into it.
Yeah,
For your safety and ours.
right. And system. It'll protect our system, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, thank you for your time and attention.
Eric, I'll give you one more tip we learned from Florence. If you have an ice maker in your freezer, we highly recommend you empty the ice out if you're going to be leaving your home. Because we were in some places 10 days without power, and everyone's ice in their freezer melted and flooded their kitchen floors. So just a quick little one. That's also not the water that kills, but it does damage your floors.
It can make your wife really mad though, because I forgot to do that. So about halfway through Florence, we came to check on our homes. I'm in Carteret County, and we emptied all the food because that was one thing we were kind of running low of at work was food. So and it was going to go bad anyway. So we brought, emptied our fridges and our freezers and brought food to work. But I forgot about the ice maker. So my wife was not exactly happy, but I said, again, when you come back to this area and you see what happened, and that was the worst, we had some other minor issues in the house, but that was the worst damage we had. That's nothing. We had piles of debris all through the neighborhood. So, but it is, a cleanup and a floor repair. The other thing that stood out, a lot of people talked about that 45 mile per hour wind threshold. I kind of went through it quick on, don't focus on just a category. A lot of people focus on landfall. It's going to get here Saturday at 8 o'clock, Saturday morning. Those winds can pick up to a half day to a day in advance. Again, hurricane's not a dot on a map. It doesn't just get here Saturday morning and, it's here and then it's gone. It's huge. It's hundreds of miles across. And it even surprised me with Dorian that the landfall was still 12 to 20 hours away toward Ocracoke. And those first outer rain bands, it went from 0 to 60 quick when we had those tornado warnings. So if you decide to leave, you decide to stay, stick with that decision. You may not have the opportunity last minute to leave because the winds will pick up well in advance of the storm. So have your plan of action and execute it. You may not be able just to pick up and leave at the last minute because the bridges might be closed, if there's already tornadoes or dangerous conditions, and you just don't want to be out on the road. So, any other questions? Yes, did anybody want to speak in the back or? No? Okay. So I think we're good. A lot of the folks from the water company, utilities, really appreciate you coming out. It's a beautiful night. I know there's not a million people here, but this has all been recorded. And again, a lot of folks, this is your first, second, or third year. So for some of us that have lived here forever, this is a huge difference because they have not been through hurricane season. So really appreciate the tidbits. A little mental note, Miss Alice had mentioned the cash thing. I should start like a little tag up board and just keep adding those, because some of the best advice and stories come from your neighbors that have lived here, not picking on Jones Onslow, but that have lived here for a long time. They've been through it, they have the experience, so lean on some of that advice. It's really good. And this should be up on YouTube either through the town or us, so we'll share those recordings. So thanks for coming.